Hello and welcome to Game Changer. I'm Maryam Zia. Today we will be discussing about climate action. When we talk about Pakistan, of course, we know that despite contributing to less than 1% of global greenhouse gases, Pakistan remains one of the fifth most vulnerable countries of the world when it comes to climate change. The 2022 floods devastated our infrastructure and displaced millions. Although over $10 billion were promised by different global partners, but only a few hundred million dollars have reached us. In today's program, we will be talking about the call to climate action, and we know that Pakistan now needs annually an investment of 40 to 50 billion dollars to adapt and build resilience until 2050. What needs to be done at Pakistan's level, and what is the role of global south, rather global north when it comes to climate action. We will be discussing all these dimensions in today's program because we also know that Pakistan needs to build a sustainable future, and for this we need to protect our nation from climate change, and it demands an estimated of course amount of up to $38 trillion by 2050. How this is going to be happening in coming days, what needs to be done by Pakistan and other countries, we will be discussing in today's program. To discuss this and more, we are joined in the studios by Mr. Hamid, sarfraz, who is an environmentalist. Welcome to the program. We are also joined by Dr. Sohail, who is a professor of environmental sciences at University. Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
And we are joined online by Mr. Muhammad Ali Kemal, who is economist. Welcome to the program. Dr. Sohail, let me start with you. Of course, when we look at the figures, Pakistan remains fifth most vulnerable countries of the world globally. Yet when it comes to contributions of Pakistan to global greenhouse gases, it is less than 1%. What's your take on this? What needs to be done at Pakistan's, of course, when it comes to our own policies regarding climate change?
Thank you very much. Yes, you are absolutely right that the contribution of Pakistan is less than 1%. But we can say that this is kind of injustice with Pakistan, that we are not contributing, but we are facing the challenge. But this is the reality, but we have to move forward from here, because we cannot deny this. Pakistan is located in such a region. For example, in Pakistan there are around 7,000 glaciers. And these are the most in the world after the polar regions.
And out of these, around 70 are most vulnerable.
20% in last 50 years, 20% of these glaciers have melted because of rise in temperature. So Pakistan is facing the consequences. So when glaciers are melting, there is we face floods, then there are extensive rainfalls, and sometimes there are drier periods, like we have witnessed from October till February. It was like a drier period in Pakistan. So these are all the consequences of climate change and the weather patterns which are shifting, and they are actually very badly affecting the Pakistan and its economy. So what Pakistan need to do is that we are left with limited options. So we cannot control the temperature rise, as this is, we are not contributing to it, but we have to do the mitigation steps. So since we are facing this, so Pakistan needs to to switch. We call it climate resilience. So our infrastructure should be climate resilient. And then we have what we lack actually in all these circumstances. We do not have enough resources or sources to save the water. We are not we do not have enough storage for the water. So we are wasting.
Back to the infrastructure that is needed when it comes to mitigation and building resilience of the infrastructure that is needed at this point in time. But Mr. Hamid, when we look at the figures, and Like Dr. Saab mentioned, that of course this is maybe 2022 floods are long over now, but they had an immense amount of pressure on our economy, and even today we know that millions of people are still displaced after 3 years. What's your take on this? And especially when it comes to building a systematic infrastructure, or in your opinion, what systematic failures led to the escalation of the kind of damage that we witnessed back in 2022?
Okay, thank you very much. Firstly, let me share with you that according to the latest climate risk index, Pakistan is #1, the most affected country because of the 2022 floods. Interestingly, if you look at the trend backwards, Pakistan has not been in 10 countries for many years,
Yes.
but just one event,
Exactly.
2022 floods, it put Pakistan on #1. So actually it tells us the kind of devastating impact climate change might have on our economy, or on system, our livelihoods, our whole country. Now coming back to these floods, it costed us almost 10% of our GDP. There has been many researches, there have been many models, sorry, and it has been found that if nothing is done to address climate change challenge, the cost of no action will be something between 5% to 13% of global GDP. Now this is average. If we come to the developing countries, actually this percentage would go up.
Of course.
And the developing countries unfortunately do not have the kind of resources to cope with this situation. Same happened in 2022. Not only that the first world, or the north, global north, did not fulfill its promises, but it was also our lack of capacity that we were unable to projectize. The only money which actually materialized out of those pledges of 13.4 billion was coming from the DFIs, and those were loans. And because these DFIs wanted to disperse loans, hence they helped us developing projects. But
so even those came at a cost to countries like Pakistan.
Exactly, exactly. The free money was something like 530 million or something. That was total grant money. Rest was in as loans, and of course these are actually highly subsidized loans, but still we have to pay back that money. Now if we have to pay back that money, it means that our economy should be able to generate that much revenue that we are able to pay it back, and we are not actually. So even in last 2.5 years, we have not been able to recover from that 10% loss of GDP, and yet this year, although we are expecting drought, and we have seen that there was low rainfall.
Of course.
But unfortunately, our forewarning system has not developed to that extent where we can fully rule out the possibility of high monsoon. So there are possibilities. So even one spell of heavy monsoon can result in flooding. Reason? We have not invested into infrastructure.
Right.
For political reasons.
Of course, political will is also necessary, but Dr. Sohail, when it comes to, of course, these climate changes, of course, we know that 2024 was one of the most hottest year, not only in Pakistan, but globally as well. And like Hamid Saab alluded to, of course, the lack of urban planning. When we look at the figures, they are really concerning when it comes to air quality index, that more than 25% of Pakistanis are breathing toxic, of course, air. So what kind of urban planning or infrastructure planning is needed at this point in time, so that we can avert the impacts of these changes, like he mentioned about the floods and other things?
Yeah, I think in Pakistan we need to revolutionize our environmental and climate policies. So when we are talking about the air pollution, we need to see what are the main sources. So main sources are your emissions from the vehicles, and then your agricultural waste, and then your dust particles. So now we need to look, this is directly linked with your growing population. So we are already 250 million, more than that, and this is increasing. So what we are doing is we are removing our, our green spaces, they are shrinking, and our buildings, colonies, they are expanding. So we need to formulate a policy. We need to have a urban planning where we are making a city, where we are making a housing colony. How much percent of this housing colony will be reserved as a green spaces, as green parks, and what is the system of the rainwater harvesting or wastewater treatment. So this whole need, and then you need a transportation policy as well. So in Pakistan, as your population grows, the number of vehicles on the roads are increasing with every passing day. So they are actually they are releasing the pollutants in the environment. So we need to strengthen our public transport. When the people will come to the public transport, when this is affordable, then when this is respectable, then when it is accessible. So if there are lot of in lot of countries in the world, they have excellent transport systems. So we can follow them, we can take ideas from there, and we can manage. And then your shopping centers, you need to plan that there shouldn't be only one big shopping center in a mega city. There need to be many. So
Of course.
ideally it
Overall,
should be on a 20 minutes walk. We need to plan like this when we call, but in Pakistan you don't show any planning. So our planning is only, this is a business idea. So we just make the housing colonies without taking care of the environment, just expanding it. Agricultural land is wasted and used for the, so we are actually making the concrete forests now.
right,
So
right. Let me bring in Mr. Kemal into the discussion. Mr. Kemal, when we look at these points that are, of course, mentioned by Dr. Sohail, what's your take on this, especially when we look at the steps that are needed for the overhaul of urban planning? And also when it comes to, of course, the money that was pledged by global partners, only a few hundred millions have been received by Pakistan so far out of $10 billion. What needs to be done on Pakistan's part in this point in time, and also keeping in mind the context of significance of carbon trading and credits?
Thank you very much, and very pertinent questions. I would rather say, number one, we need to stop subsidizing cars. That's one of the concepts Dr. Nadeem Alak has told us. He was a former vice chancellor of Pakistan Institute of Development Economics. That we need to stop subsidizing cars. When we are talking about subsidizing cars, then that means that we are building lots of flyovers, lots of facilities for the car owners, and we are inviting them to bring their car on the road. That's one of the major things that we cannot think of. If we ask any engineer that uh, what is the solution for congestion, so he will say or she will say that build another road, build a highway, build a overhead bridge, build a underground pass, so that there will be no obstruction in the traffic, and we have signal-free corridors. Right, love signal-free corridors. But the thing is, because I have a car, so I love signal-free corridors. But in that way, when we are not moving towards electrical vehicles, so we have more pollution in the air. And there's a study of PIDE and the Urban Unit of Lahore that most of the AQI index is contributed by the cars. When we have COVID, the AQI index dropped from 600, 700 to less than 100. So that was one of the major reasons that we did not have it. Another point which you have mentioned and my friends have mentioned, and for the last 4 or 5 years, this is my own thesis, that we need to stop thinking in dollars. Right now we have rupees 280 per dollar. Whenever we talk about the climate financing, we always say $40 billion we need in a year, $72 billion we need in a year. Mind it that we do not have dollars in the economy right now, whatever the number is, as far as the foreign exchange is concerned. We need to pay back, we need to build reserve, we have less exports, more imports. Current account balance is just at the balance level because of the low level of economic activity. So, having said that's all entire inclusively, we need to think in rupees, and we need to think in terms of governance way. That how do we communicate with the community members that we do not need to pollute, we need to adapt, we need to mitigate both of the things, because world is looking at us as far as the mitigation is concerned, but we need to adapt. So we need to do both of the aspects. That we need to adapt in a way that we will mitigate as well, and we need to mitigate in a way that we will adapt to climatic action as well. So, having said that, in nutshell,
But my question is that, like you mentioned, that we don't need to think in terms of dollars. But what's the reason behind that? Because we are talking about the responsibility of global north when it comes to, of course, pollution and climate change. So, of course, pledges were made over $10 billion, and now countries like Pakistan need that kind of money.
so if you go into the nitty-gritties of those $10 billion, you will see that those $10 billion are coming into livelihood opportunities, those building coming in the budgetary support. So those are not much. We estimated $32 billion, and that was just for the damage and need assessment. It was not for the resilience. For the resilience, we need more dollars if we are talking about dollars. So that's one of the things that we can definitely, we need to have a word. We need to have in a positive way propagate at the world level that we that look at the world, that you polluted the world, now you need to give us the ecological debt which we should have around $7 to $8 billion a year. But the thing is that they giving it to us? No, they're not giving to us. They are not in a mood to give it to us. You can see the policies of Donald Trump. He said that we are not liable to Paris Agreement or any other international commitments. So in that way, we must look for our own resources. Number one, we should look at our own diaspora if we are thinking of our dollars. And above all, we need to show the world that we are ready to mitigate and we are ready to adapt to the climatic changes, and we will help everyone, not just in numbers showing that we will reduce 50% if you give us money, and if you don't give us money, then we will not do it. But the thing is that it is our problem right now, as my fellow friend said, that we are number one right now, or number five right now, or number 10 right now. We are among the top 10 vulnerable country right now in the world, in the region. So we need to act fast. We need to act very effectively, because we do not have time to act on it. So one thing is we should stop. We shouldn't stop looking at the foreign countries, but we should stop relying just on the foreign countries. Act fast, etc.
Right. Let me take the same point to the studios. Mr. Hamid, what's your take on this? Because global funding or climate funding or finance remains an important issue when it comes to implementation of building resilience. So how can we build resilience when we don't have that kind of funding or that kind of technical facilities or infrastructure, building measures? How can we go for that?
I tend to agree with Ali that these countries will not give us money. They are in no mood. It all started with Paris Agreement, which said that there will be 100 billion per annum for the
Yes.
climate change action. that never materialized. So far the Global Green Climate Fund, which is the mechanism for that, it has received something like 20 billion, it has disbursed 16 billion, and it is actually struggling. Out of the next commitments, 3 billion were from the US, which has actually withdrew from
Yes,
the UNFCCC. So it means that money is not coming. Similarly, other, for example, the adaptation fund, for example, the global environment facility, all these mechanisms were based on the assumption that the global north would contribute, take its responsibility, and they are not taking its responsibility. If you go and attend the conferences of parties, their argument is always that, look, who stopped you from developing? You could have developed, we developed, yes, we polluted the world, but we are not the only culprits here.
But don't you think that this was a good move, that in recent COP29 it was all about finance, although the outcomes were not very pleasing, but at the same time do you think that was kind of optimistic, that the theme was on finance?
No, not at all. I mean, we have been failing on from COP 1 to COP 29. Nothing has come out of it. For example, COP 28, we were able to operationalize the loss and damage fund, which was supposed to be providing, for example, only Pakistan's need was 30 billion.
Yes,
32
30
billion.
to 40 billion per
Okay.
year. Yeah.
No, even 22
Yeah.
floods. So our loss was this, and the total amount they have received so far is 755 million US dollars. So, and the last commitment was by Japan, 15 million. 15 million, I mean, even our one project is more than 15 million. So I agree that we need to forget about international commitments. We should actually stop spending, actually wasting money on attending these international conferences and conference of parties and all those. Yes, on diplomatic level, on government level, 3-4 personnel should go and attend. What we need to do is look into our own resources. We have to manage our own house. Adaptation does not require a lot of money from outside. It actually, adaptation is changing the way you have been doing things in the past.
Like planning, like
It's
we
better
earlier
planning.
discussed. Yeah.
It's reappropriation of resources where those are needed. It is actually moving towards more resilient kind of ecosystem. For example, in agriculture, you need to introduce smart agriculture. You need to teach the farmers. You have to take your research, which actually our research institutions are there, to the farmer, telling them that your crop does not require this much water, and this variety can help you sustaining the impact of climate change. So we need to actually put our house in order, rather than expecting that somebody would come, not only would give us money, as Sherry said, actually we are expecting they would tell us that what to do. We have to soul search, we have to see that what we need to do and how much resources do we have and how we can reappropriate and reprioritize our actions, which can help us coming out of this mess. Otherwise, we will keep whining and expecting that people would help us. Nobody would help us.
Right. We cannot call it whining, because Pakistan was the voice of course, global South when it comes to COPs 28 and 29. But Dr. Sohail, this is very important aspect that Mr. Hamid mentioned, that we have to keep our own house in order, and urban planning and other sectors, a lot of measures we need to do. But at the same time, when we look at different reports, and the joint report by World Weather Attribution noted an average of 41 extra days of dangerous heat in 2024. How should such data inform our policies in coming days?
Yeah, and this is very important, that we need accurate data so that we can inform our citizens. For example, sir were talking about that these rainfall patterns, they are affected by two events. They are called El Nino and La Nina. And if we have these, the data and the information, we can inform our farmers well in time that these 2 to 3 years would be dry or wet, yet 3 to 5 years they will be wet, and in which months there will be more rainfalls are expected. So then we can plan better. So you are given an example of the temperature that every year since 1800 20,000, like,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, we are moving towards.
Every, from 2000, every year is hotter than the previous year.
Yeah.
And this winter, only in Pakistan, average temperature from November till January were 4 centigrade higher. And this is not, this won't stop here, that the temperature is high, okay, the rainfall is, look at the consequences. The consequences which at the moment we are not feeling, but they are very
No,
dangerous.
we are very much feeling those.
Yeah, no, one consequence is like you feel more heat.
Yeah.
We have more heat strokes in the summer. We do not enjoy real winters. We do not have spring. But then it is linked with your agriculture, with your food security. Pakistan is an agriculture country. 60% your population is dependent on agriculture. 23% of the GDP is from the agriculture, and this will severely impact your food security.
Of course.
Your crops, if the water availability is less, so we need to work on these lines. We need to we need to have this we need to be prepared for this, that which crops will be grown in which months in the coming month. Sarah rightly said that we need to, maybe we will have to switch to the crops which need less water. Maybe we have to switch the pattern, but this is a difficult job. You cannot convince a farmer
And,
so easily.
Dr. Sohail, this problem is not limited to Pakistan only, because we remember that we witnessed unprecedented fires in Amazon and droughts in areas which we never witnessed in the past. So of course we are moving towards a global temperature rise that is going to be maybe 1.5 to 3 degrees Celsius by year 2050. That is very alarming for not only for developing countries like Pakistan, but for developed world as well. But when it comes to, of course, global funding, Mr. Kemal, World Bank's 10-year country partnership framework aims to finance climate resilience projects. Yet when we look at the funds, they remain very less or very meager. What mechanisms could be employed by Pakistan to scale up these investments to match up to the challenges that we are facing today?
Thank you, Deep. Though the World Bank in January 2025, right, 2 months ago, and we welcomed $20 billion for 10-year funding plan from the World Bank, and they are investing in renewable energy, education, social sectors that aim to tackle critical development challenges and enhance basically climate resilience. Having said that, there's a new concept of adaptive social protection, and that is very important. But Pakistan and we as a Pakistani nation, we need to step up and contribute a significant amount of money and significant amount of effort. When I say efforts, then it is beyond money, that we need to go into the streets, go into the communities, and tell people that what to do, because we have several issues. Little digress, several issues that we do not do immunization of our children less than 1 year old, or 2 years old, or 5 year old kids. Because why? Because they are not registered, or they do not want to cross that bridge to that EPI center and having that immunization covered. So someone needs to step up and ask the guy to go to that village and villages to go to that immunization center. So that's effort as well, which is non-monetary effort. So non-monetary effort is also very important. As far as the dollar is concerned, I have already said it. But again, just to reiterate, it is not a huge amount of money. And when I talk about the adaptive social protection, that is climate resilience social protection system. That how to mitigate and adapt to the climatic action, climate changes, and then we need to step to give them education, give them health, give them livelihood opportunities, give them renewable energy. So all those kind of investments in the local community is very important, and that's World Bank is partnering with with our country. That's World Bank. Then there's an Asian Development Bank. Then we have European Union, which is coming through GIC. They are pitching in some amount of money, but that's a loan again. That's the IDA loan. There's a very meager amount of a very small amount of grant in it. So we have to give it back. Number one. Number two. Again, I'm reiterating that we need to think of green bonds, which we can collect it from our local community, local investor. We need to ask, we should ask the private sector to step up and just not planting the green, the trees in Islamabad, Lahore, or Karachi, but they need to step up for the social protection as far as the local community is concerned and their own employees are concerned. Having said that, the number one thing which is in combination to in conjunction to the climate action, private sector can have a big effort in producing green products, have less pollution. And when I say private sector, it doesn't mean just manufacturing. It is agriculture, it is services sector, it is transport sector, it is all other energy efficient where we can invest. So private sector is the one who can contribute a lot as far as the financing is concerned. Just with, thinking beyond government and beyond the dollar, from the developed world and development partners. So it is in conjunction it's a combined effort by the private sector, the local communities, to invest in those mitigation and adaptation measures. Otherwise, there is no possible way to overcome the problem of climate changes we are facing. So where we need to invest in the infrastructure, government is there. Where we need to invest in the infrastructure as far as the dollar is concerned, development partners are there because hopefully in Udan, Pakistan, following the Udan, Pakistan, we will able to export more and more and more, and we have more better current account balance. So we have some foreign currency bucks which we can spend on the infrastructure. Otherwise, there's no point. There's no solution to it.
Mr. Hamid, Ali Saab alluded to, of course, green action bonds, and we know that government has recently launched these bonds. First, what's your take on this? And also, of course, we know that Pakistan is also trying to get a $1 billion funding when it comes to climate change as well. So, how do you think that these steps are going to be sustainable in the long run, and what innovative financial instruments are needed by Pakistan to bridge the funding gap at this point in time?
Yeah, I think these are steps in the right direction. We have to take many steps, and green bonds is one. Actually, a few years ago, Pakistan launched a green bond for WAPDA. It was 500 million euros, and actually it was oversubscribed 6 times oversubscribed. So that was a big success. So encouraged by that, actually now government of Pakistan through Karandaz has actually launched this bond. The more bonds are needed to bring in the necessary finance which is needed. Secondly, engaging private sector. That is the solution, because not only that they can help Pakistan achieving its climate targets. For example, NDCs, we have committed that we'll reduce our GHG emissions by 50% by 2030. So if industry actually reduces,
by the way, that is very ambitious goal.
That is very ambitious, but we had the caveat. We estimated that by 2030 our emissions would be something like 1,600 million metric tons of carbon dioxide equivalent, but the baseline was actually less than 500. So we assume that our economy is developing at a pace that we can never surpass the figure of 750. So we would remain in the safe limit. So I mean that was just kind of a play we played. But on the other hand, bringing in money, so private sector can contribute. Then we have lot of resources to earn climate credits. So the recent government's recent effort, they issued policy guidelines for earning climate credits and bringing in that kind of finance. That is very encouraging. And for example, Sindh government is already earning money on its mangrove efforts. Then we have our forests. Then interestingly, under the voluntary carbon regime, you can earn carbon credits on any kind of action where actually you are helping in reducing the emissions. So, whether it is the housing sector, it is industry, it is transport, it is agriculture. For example, agriculture, I mean, it is surprising that agriculture contributes 45% in GHG emissions, and out of it actually 2/3 is coming from the livestock. So, that is actually where we have to make efforts. We do not need money, we need to educate our farmer, our livestock
Right,
people.
and that brings me to my next question. That is that with nearly 8 million species now at risk due to climate change, how do you propose that Pakistan balances this urgent need for economic development with the imperative of biodiversity and its when it comes to conservation of biodiversity, like you mentioned about Sindh as well?
Yeah, we need to enhance our capacity in environmental assessment. Unfortunately, environmental assessment, it's not only environment, actually it is just the word, but actually it includes environmental and social assessments, which help you take ameliorative measures, which help you take the precautions which are necessary to protect your biodiversity. Without these systems, and unfortunately the biggest culprit has been the public sector projects, because they are actually, there is a pressure from the government, the EPAs, which are the government agencies, they actually give them approvals. For the private sector, yes, they are stringent, but for the public sector, which is actually the biggest sector in construction, biggest sector in even transport, so there is no value for environmental assessment. So, bringing in that. Second thing is helping the universities do the research on actual biodiversity, the biodiversity loss, its reasons, and how that can be reversed. Unfortunately, we are not investing in that direction, and this investment will not be huge. It will be, we have very talented academicians with us. It is only providing them some necessary equipment, necessary funds for travel, and sending these students in the. We have thousands of students in the universities who can go in field, they can do primary research. Very recently, just one person, he trained 70 professionals from various cities, young professionals. He provided them 3 days training, and as a result of that 3 days training, he asked them to develop a profile for their cities. So, right now we have a profile for 21 cities which has been compiled. It's called a white paper, so just released yesterday. So, universities can do lot of knowledge generation work, which can then be disseminated by the government, by the PTV is the best forum. I mean, you can disseminate that information, it can reach to the people, and when people know that we have this problem and here is the solution, why won't they take up that solution?
Of course, and of course biodiversity conservation is going to be having a positive impact when it comes to communities as well, because when we look at different projections and reports, Dr. Sohail, these reports indicate that a large scale climate change triggers a lot of migration, and the numbers might go to over 1 billion people by 2050. What policies should Pakistan, in your opinion, adopt to manage this internal displacement that is triggered by climate change?
You are absolutely right that just one example, if I quote that, the Indus River can affect 50 million people in Pakistan. So, if there are floods in the Indus River, 50 million people will be displaced. So, we just look at the scenario in Pakistan, how much difficult it could be. So, we need to, as we have discussed earlier, that we need to make the planning, we need to make the policy in such a way that in the coming years, we do not face this kind of challenges. So, we must be ready for extensive, for example, rainfall. We must be, even drought is even severe than the flooding. So, if there are no rains or there is a shortage of water, again it will result in the migration of the people. So, this the displacement is not easy for any government in the world. Leave the Pakistan, which is a developing country, even developed countries will face lot of difficulties in managing the displaced people due to the climatic factors which are causing. So, I think the need is that we focus on that how we can manage with our own resources, because as my colleagues have discussed that we are not going to get lot of funding from abroad. So we need to look what we have and how we can manage it. And I'm
Right.
sure we can manage it, but there should be a this climate and environment should be the #1 agenda now
Right.
in Pakistan.
Of course, climate emergency is needed, that we keep on pointing out. Lastly, Mr. Kemal, what's your take on this, that what kind of measures are needed by policy makers to reframe our policies when it comes to climate change?
So, and basically, as Prime Minister last year said that we need to have an education emergency, we need to have announced a clear-cut climate emergency policy in Pakistan and every part of the world, because right now we are struggling with the economic situation, but at the same time we are struggling with our climatic action or climate emergency situation as well. So those both go hands in hand. Number one. Number two, government must act as a facilitator. Government basically is investing too much in infrastructure, which is very important. But everyone is looking at the government, and government. We need to tell people and involve private sector, local communities, civil society organization, as my fellow friend has said, academia, which I have missed, because local solution, local problems are local solutions, and these these academicians are very important in identifying the problem, identifying the solution.
Of course, of course, of course. These are very important aspects when it comes to climate change and climate action. I thank all three of my panelists for joining us in today's discussion. That's all from Game Changer tonight. Take care. Allah Hafiz.